Can y'all hear me? Do I need to talk louder? Adam, can you hear me? Adam's on the back row. Okay. Good morning, everyone. This morning, Adam allowed an interruption to his class, and we're going to have a conversation about agape. And so we're going to look at some verses that are out of 1 John, so I'm going to tie it to 1 John, that support the spirit of foster care and taking care of people that are vulnerable and children. And then I'll introduce agape a little bit about what agape does as a work of the church, and then it'll be a Q&A. Some of you may know little, some of you may think you know from the past, and some about agape, and some of you may know nothing about agape. Who knows anything about agape of North Carolina? Something in the past. All right, good. There is some familiarity. Now I've got to stop. I'm a man, and I can't do two things at once. So if you've noticed, I was trying to put this in my coat while I talked, and that wasn't working. So I got to stop and put it in my coat. Is that it? All right, there we go. Yes! I know, that's funny. Okay. For our biblical discussion today, the question is, what do you and I see? What do you see? A license plate. Huh? Sometimes late. That ought to be on my car. My personality, to the frustration of those who know me, would always, I got 3 minutes, I'll cram something in. You know what that does when I cram something in? It makes me late to the next opportunity. Correct. That's me right there. Now, when I first saw that, the engineering in me looked at this a whole differently, and I'm like, sum of x equals L8. You engineers relate? And from that background, I'm like, but then no, right? So who was it that said it? Sometimes late. What's this one? Y'all can see that? It's kind of fuzzy, isn't it? Maybe this helps it to see a little better. Sometimes we see better from the point of view from which we see. Is that a fair statement? Sometimes we think we see and we might not see the whole picture. I'm waiting for you. Somebody, I know in the audience, knows what this is. It's Buckeye what? No, it's not. Forever. But you got close. I enjoy a football game. I especially like watching Wolfpack games. I will purposely sometimes watch a football game in my life, though I don't watch TV as a rule. And so I'm not into all this. And I took this picture. This is in Raleigh. And when I saw this, at our place where we live, we see 4 to 10 deer in our yard every single day. And recently saw one of the bucks of the herds, and he's an 8-pointer. And we just watched the deer come through our yard, and I had that on my mind when I was driving. It was on my mind, right? When I was driving, because I just leaving and was thinking about it. And it was that's my context. And I drive up behind this car, and I go, Buck if very radical. And I'm just trying to figure it out, because I'm not a Buckeye fan and not a big football fan. And I like what Adam said at the beginning. The first thing he saw was a license plate, right? It's kind of funny. What is it you see? This is 1 John 3:1. So Adam's been leading us in the study of 1 John. And this verse says, "See what kind of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called children of God, and so we are. And that word see, this is the New American Standard Version. The ESV also uses this version, but anybody guess what the King James would use for that word see? Behold. See, the word see here is not just the science of the light fractions come from y'all and y'all's smiling faces and the wall back there, and it goes through my eyeball, and my nervous system and my muscles change it into signals, and those signals go to my brain, and my brain somehow takes those signals, and I can see a vision. That's not what this see is. This see is not physical. This see is, do you get it? Behold, do you capture it? That is what this see is. And what is it that John is asking us, John is asking his audience, and he's asking us, what's he asking us to see? What are some aspects of that phrase? What is he, and this is the class, right? What is he asking us to see? God's love. Okay? What else? There's many aspects in here. So I'm asking you to see. Examine this like you were examining a license plate and trying to figure out what it says. All right? There are many words in here that are a message. There we go. I heard two, and I'll try to take them in order. One of them was adoption. Do you see adoption here? Now, Andy kind of caught the context, right, about agape, but do you see adoption? What does it mean? That we should be what? Do you and I capture that we were not a child, that we did not belong, that we may have been lonely or desperate or destitute or despicable? Any more D's in there? Until the Lord took us into His family, right? Until we became a child of God and were born again. That's what baptism is. We are born again. Read John chapter 3. We are born anew. We are born again. He takes us into His family. We didn't deserve it. We couldn't put ourselves in that family. We couldn't push ourselves in that family. We couldn't drive ourselves in that family. In fact, we had no power at all. None. And He took us and put us in His family where we belong. All right, I'll stop preaching there. But I needed to be a little bit, do you and I see that we once didn't belong to the family of God? And He has taken us and put us in His family. What John is saying. Yes, Bill? Did you get? I'll repeat that. Bill is letting us know that that first word that I grasped and focused on, it is an instruction. It's not a description. It's not a suggestion. It's an imperative. That's the word I was trying to look. It's an imperative. Get it, right? He's wanting us to get it, to understand it. Understand. Now I heard kind. Now, who said kind? Okay. Linda, what the kind that's described here, I make up words all the time. Another frustration to my family, but I make up words. So see what kind of love is it? It's sacrificial love. Is it pleasant? Is it comfortable? Is it easy? Is it everything I'm ready for? It's a blessing or pleasant to us, but when we're looking at from the point of view of being like that, right? See what kind of love, all right? Somebody else, examine the verse like you did a license plate. Yes, Adam. Do y'all hear that? Maybe you could hear that with Adam being in the back. Adam knows this very strongly personally, right? We're friends, and he shared with me about becoming a Christian. And if you didn't hear it in his heart right now, I heard it, right? It's about being in a place of being helpless. And I'm taken in, can't quote you exactly, Adam, but I'm taken from a place where it's a mess. You just say that. I'm in a mess. I'm taking a place from a mess. I'm helpless. And helpless means I couldn't do anything about it. And I've been taken into his family. Yes, Brittany? He showed love by giving us Jesus. Absolutely. There's other scriptures about this. I don't know about y'all. I'd for sure give up my life before I give up one of my son's lives. For sure. Hands down. Easy. Right? Scott? There's a kind of love here that Scott's wanting to call out that we might not show. I'm really tempted to put the word typically in there, but that's not what you said, right? Because maybe we don't show it. Maybe we show it to some degrees at certain times, right? But maybe never to the fullest like our Father can. Oh, did I use a word there? On purpose. How is God described? As a father. He's described as a father in the Old Testament explicitly only a handful of times. You can Google it, you can research it on your own. When Jesus talks and teaches in Matthew, how does he describe God? Your Father. He's our Father. Father, and who are we? So we are. So we are. You see the verse? So we are. You know what children do with fathers? You're sitting beside him. Yeah, we rebel, and me and my dad, I thought I knew better for the longest time. Too long. But there's some funny things too, you know. I said to myself when I was 18, 20, I'll never do that like my dad. You know the story, right? What? How did that word come out of my mouth? Because it came from where I'm from, right? Or how come I have these mannerisms that I have? And I look at them in the mirror and I'm like, where did I learn these crazy mannerisms? And some of them I hate. And discipline myself to change starting in college. I've changed some of them, but it wasn't like it changed in a year, right? Some of those just mannerisms. I'm like, I don't want to pick my nose in public, so it's kind of like just mannerisms, right? You force yourself to change. And it's hard because we're a lot like our parents than we probably want to admit. So when you think about that concept of you're being taken from a mess, as Adam says, I might call it disparity or trauma or desperateness, and you're taken into God's family. You know what? You start becoming like him. That's what happens. When you hear his repeated messages over and over to your heart, the daily prayer, the daily reading the scripture, the daily relationships with other Christians who feed you that love and grace, the daily relationships with the church, the daily relationships with your own family, all those culture of messages keep telling you, you're loved, you're very important, you're valuable, and I want you. We're taken from a mess that has those opposite messages, and the Lord's family takes us into a family where we get all those messages. You guys with me? And Andy said at the beginning, we've all been adopted. And that's what I want you to hear from the biblical doctrinal point of view, right? Is we've all been adopted. We're all taken into God's family. Keith? Okay, Keith is called out, if you didn't hear him, especially the word given. That's one of those cool words in those verses, right? Yeah, that's all right, Keith. It's a kind of love that's given. He gives love incredibly consistently. The scripture would say it's steadfast, or in 1 Corinthians it would say it's a love that never fails. It's a love that never diminishes. It's a love that never is, well, it's dark blue and never becomes light blue. It never loses its energy, its potency. Its love is always consistent. Always. It's our job to figure out and learn and become more mature when we read the Old Testament and the New Testament. How is this loving? Because there's no question that Yahweh is always loving. No question. It's our job to learn more to figure out how He's being loving. I know saying that for a purpose because I know you and I can struggle with some things that we read, right? It's our job to figure out and learn the big picture. I'm using my sight, right? Learn the big picture to figure out why that's loving, why He is looking after the whole globe and not just my little life. And I mean that, little life, right? Fill in the blanks. There's a famous song, I was once lost, but now I'm found. And there's another verse, I was once blind, and now I see. Are there some other ways to fill in this life, to fill in this sentence? Once rebellious and now reliant. I love it. Somebody else. I once was desperate and now I'm satisfied. I once was ignorant. Keith's really onto this ignorant bit. I mean, that's kind of, if y'all listen to Keith, that's the way he is, right? And that's complimentary, but I once was ignorant, but now Adam filled it out for you. Enlightened. I once was helpless. This is Adam's word. I once was helpless, but now I'm helped. Okay? I once was despicable, and now I'm, somebody fill the book, undespicable. That's pretty easy, Ted. I use the word despicable or desperate on purpose. And then we're going to talk about agape after this. There is the story of the rich young ruler. Y'all know that story? Right? We call him the rich young ruler. And the basic interaction is he has his interaction with Jesus. What do I need to obtain eternal life? And Jesus says, obey, da-da-da-da. And the rich young ruler says, I've done that. Jesus didn't lift out the greatest commands in His commandments, but He says, I've done that since my youth. And Jesus says to him, one thing you lack. And we can have all kinds of conversations about that one thing you lack, but this is one thing that I resonate with about the one thing that he may have lacked. He grew up in a religious home, a faithful home. He was taught the Old Testament by his mother. If most likely because he got through bar mitzvah, he had the Torah memorized, taught by his mother at home before he was 12. This is what this faithful young man knows. This is the role of a mother, by the way, in Jewish tradition. And so he can memorize the Torah, and he's been faithful to it. In other words, he goes to synagogue, and he's what? He's wealthy. What does he lack? He doesn't see what he needs. And I would say that's one of the barriers that you and I probably are most challenged with in the way we live today in our society. And I've been blessed or maybe cursed to be born in. And I mean that. I might have been better off to be born in a poor country. Because you know what Jesus says about the rich? In this very same story. It's incredibly impossible for the rich. There's this barrier we have, right? We can't really see how desperate we need it because of our lifestyle. Agape, I go through that was my miniature sermon when I preach at other churches. I'd have that opportunity and talk about agape. So agape has been in existence since 1982 as a foster care adoption agency, licensed in the state. It was started by a couple in the Friendly Avenue Church of Christ in Greensboro, North Carolina in 1982. And their daughter, who they adopted, Nicole, is currently on the staff of Agape. And in the early years, in the 1980s and the 90s, a lot of the focus of Agape and a lot of the focus of the culture of social services was there were many women, and most of the time girls, who were having babies. They weren't married and they weren't prepared to take care of their baby. And those that weren't prepared to take care of the baby, they were getting turned over to the state. And Tom would say, we need to take these babies in and raise them in Christian homes. And that was his message for decades, a couple of decades, across churches in the state. And a lot of folks, and some of you probably know folks that have adopted children or foster children through Agape. And the culture changed around the year 2000. I'll just pick a round number. But it became a lot more acceptable and a lot more frequent that younger women are having babies, but they're taking care of their babies, and they're not wanting to have them taken for foster care or adoption. So the culture's changed. I don't know that this is a change in the culture, but what's been recognized by Agape over those years is there are a lot of children in foster care that are not in a loving home. And just to give you a very few statistics about that, in the state of North Carolina, at any given year, there's around 10,000 children in foster care. And when you're officially in foster care, that means you're legally under the custody of the state. They're in foster care for whatever reasons. They have faced situations in their families that has created a trauma, and they needed to get out for safety and security and love, and so they're now in a foster care system. Of those 10,000 children in the state of North Carolina, there are 6,000, just under 6,000 foster families. So you don't have to be an engineer to do that math. 6,000 families versus 10,000 children. Are all those children getting taken care of well? They're not. It's a crisis. In Wake County today, there are a couple of floors in a building downtown, where children who are not welcomed into a loving home and they have to face foster care are living essentially kind of a dormitory situation where social workers are taking care of them on a rotation basis. That's Wake County. Children that face foster care are from birth until 17. At 18, they're legally on their own. Another statistic is that teenagers who age out of foster care and are not adopted or are not taken into a family by the time, somewhere in their lifetime, right, and taken care of in their family, kinship or something, there's a study that says about 25% of them are on the street or related to crime. Just giving you a few statistics. It's a need, right? The positive side is that families who will take a child into their home 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, even if they're not adopted, greatly increase that person. I'm using the word person on purpose, not child. That person can have a functional life. They'll remember that time they felt loved and belonged, and they heard daily messages that were that, despite how they acted, despite the trauma they brought to that family, despite all the stuff baggage they brought. And even that family, and we'll tell you, if you take care of a child and they're with you 6 months or a year and you don't know, you might not know what's going to happen, where it's going to go. It still changes their life. They get a chance to see the love of God for that period of time. I work with a team that has we're blessed. We tell each other every week with this opportunity. What we do as Agape is we want to find families that are curious about taking care of children in foster care. You don't even have to adopt. If you want to adopt, great. 67% of our families adopt. But if you don't, it's okay too. Will you take a child in your home? And will you love them, and we'll support you? Our job is to help find those families. We are licensed. We will train you. You go through 6 sessions required by the state. We offer session 7. Session 7 is your spiritual walk and how what you do relates to the gospel. And we share the gospel with them in session 7. We're looking for families that say they walk with God, and will affirm that and sign our affirmation. They walk with God and they follow God. This is a godly outreach to families. It's a godly outreach to churches, and godly outreach to children through the families. We actually don't directly serve the children. We support the families. Our social workers are extraordinarily, we try to equip them so they're extraordinarily available, so they can get calls in the evenings, on weekends. They'll go with them to court appointments. They'll help them walk through the legal system. They'll help them meet, our goal is to meet the birth family, which most of the time is the birth mother in our culture. And meet the birth mother and connect with the birth mother and reach out to the birth mother. And we have a case right now where that birth mother is turning to the Lord. The child was put in custody because she went into prison. She went into prison because she and her boyfriend were doing drugs, and he was an abuser, and she killed him. And she went to prison for 7 years, and she just got out. And she's living beside the foster care family of that little girl that took care of that family for 7 years. And that foster care family was reaching out to that mother in prison and going to see her in prison. And the little girl says, I have 2 mothers. It's a beautiful story. Probably don't need to tell any more stories. It gets to you really fast, right? I'm a product of informal foster care by my mother. It's one reason why I'm doing this. So, that's what we do. About 40% of our revenue is from the church and Christians. About 55% is from the government, because we get a stipend for all the families we support and take in children. About 5% are just miscellaneous givers who like what we do. And this is what we offer. You heard me describe it. Those are the things we do, but we offer extraordinary care. That's our aim. And so now, this is kind of like the season when people are deciding what they wanted. They may have some contribution money available, and they may want to give some of their money. So this affords more opportunity for me just to share what Agape does. So I'll just say that money part aside. If you have it in your heart to give money to support Agape, great. I want to tell you, we're financially stable where we are right now. We have a year's worth of funds, and so if our funds kind of go like this, we can still operate for a year. There was a period of time about 15 years ago that the board had to step up and keep Agape floated with their own money. Because after Tom passed away of cancer, there were some tough years. So we do need money if we want to grow. But this is especially what I want you to hear, and then I'm going to stop and let you ask me questions. And this is what I want you to hear. What we really are asking and need is families who are willing to take care of children. Agape has been growing the last 3 years. About 4 years ago, we had 15 or 20 families we supported. If you can read that chart, last December, right the second row right there, licensed foster homes. In December last year, we supported 43 homes. Our social workers did. They're our front line. August is 51. Actually, today it's 48. But in August, it was 51. In August, we were training 9 families and licensed them. And today, it's about 7. It's a constant process. It's like this. And social workers, finding qualified social workers is my request. My first request is families who are willing to take care of children. I'm not going to tell you it'll be easy. We'll train you and support you. Are you willing? Are you feeling an urge? Are you feeling a curiosity in asking questions, right? Don't think that I have to be in my 30s and 20s and 30s to be in the spot to do it. one of our most prolific's not the right word. I'm trying to come up with the right word. We have a mother, a single mother who's 60. She's now taking care of 17 foster children. Not all at one time, Ted. The reason I give that illustration is think caring for children in your home for a period of time, even if you're not adopting. And you don't have to be 35 years old. You can be 50, you can be 60, maybe even 70. Starts to challenge us a little bit on our energy when we're 70. But that's the mind frame I want you to just consider. Because as foster families adopt, what happens? They're no longer fostering children. Another thing happens too, as foster families tend to get worn out, there's a statistic in the public statistic is that foster families, after they start fostering, they're not fostering after 3 years. Some don't last a year because it is exhausting. What's tied to that statistic is, and this is why we do what we do, is they're really on their own. They don't get a lot of support. There's wonderful people that work for the Wake County and other county social services. A lot of wonderful people there. We love them, a partner, and they ask our advice. But they don't have time. They're overloaded. And you can't find them after 4:30 because they're overloaded as it is, right? And so we're trying to be really careful and not burn out our social workers. Some of them work part-time, some of them work full-time. We have social workers in Mecklenburg County, Friendly, Mecklenburg, Guilford County, Catawba County, Forsyth County, Wake County. We need to find social workers in the eastern part of the state. But if you know some folks who are qualified, have some kind of credentials in social work or counseling, and we're interested in working part-time or full-time as a social worker, that's my request. That's our strongest need besides families. The money will come. The Lord will bless us with the money. I know already your hearts. You guys have already given, by the way. Last year, you guys gave some really nice sacrifices to Agape last year. And if you want to give, just go to the website and get the QR code, you can give, right? Thank you for that. It was wonderful. Our ratio of contribution of Christians versus contribution of the government changed from 33% to 44% in 1 year. And we want that to change for many different good reasons, right? So, all right, now ask your question. Keith, sorry. I was ignoring you on purpose because I knew I'd get to you. They have come to us for advice because they have noticed, based on that statistic, public statistic, they have noticed our families stick with it longer. I didn't say the other side of the statistic, right? The other side of the statistic is a family who has a consistent, supported social worker doesn't always get exhausted because they got a support. In our world, what we say, our foster families who have a church that truly wraps their arms around them, right? Makes sure their needs are provided for, gives them a weekend off, understands how to care for and teach their child that they're fostering in the education program. You know, a church that really gets it and wraps their hands around these parents who are stepping out and saying, I will take care of a child. That's what we're looking for too, Keith. So part of my job is developing relationships with churches across the state. I have about 20 now that I interact with, and trying to develop this sense of churches putting their arms around people and families and mothers who will take care of foster children. I can talk too much. Yes, go ahead. Yes, not as efficient. I understand your word, and if you don't mind, I might even say not as potent, not as engaged. Because and it's not that the folks are bad, they're just overwhelmed, and they don't have the church. So Agape is not going to solve the foster care crisis. The church is. And the church has the capability to. We're here as experts to help you understand it, to license you, to train you, to support you. But we're not the ones to solve the crisis. So this flow in and out is the representation of social workers going in the bucket and then coming out of the bucket. It's also the representation of families going in the bucket and then coming out of the bucket. Yes, Ted.
Other churches, like Catholic churches, Baptist churches, they have programs do the same thing as you work with those.
Okay, the question is, do other church groups, movements, traditions, denominations, all those words, do they have foster care agencies, things like that? And do we work with them? So a couple questions there. The answer is yes. There's the Baptist Children's Home Association. The Methodists have an association. The Catholic definitely has an association. Community churches are now growing in their interest in this. Community churches are mostly Baptist and Presbyterian churches with a new name in history. But there's some of those folks that are starting, they don't really have an agency, but they're getting more interested in foster care. And he asked if we work with them. We have relationship with them because we're in the same effort, right, to help people. What is sad to us, and we're very prominent about this, by the way, what is sad to us is some of those agencies I just named will train and place children with folks who are gay, and we won't do that. Yes. 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 Yes.
So how does that work with Agape is taking outside money from agencies outside of the world? How do you fit into that world?
Okay. I can't repeat all that well, but I think most people may have heard at least the gist of your question. The board of directors are all members of the Church of Christ across the state of North Carolina. They will always be that way by our bylaws. The executive director is a member of the church. Will always be that way as our bylaws. Just as part of the answer to that. The other part of the answer is that we have a relationship in those counties. Kimberly, she's our executive director. She has a great relationship with probably a dozen or 15 counties. And the realization is we're very prominent. You can go to our website, you can see it's very prominent, right? Who we are and assigned affirmation. We're very prominent about who we are. And our goal to help answer Jane's question is that in the counties that we work with, to have such a good relationship with those social workers and those heads of departments of social work, that if they have to come to us because there's a law that says I can't no longer send you the stipend, it's required by law they have to send us a stipend if one of our families is caring for a child in foster care. We get a stipend. And so if they have to come to say, I can't give you the stipend anymore because this is the way you are, we want them to cry about it. Does that make sense? We won't be sad about it because of the quality of what we offer. And that may happen. And so one of the things we're doing as a board and as a leadership is we're trying to grow our support from the church and Christians because we need to grow it. We don't know what's going to happen with that currently obligated legal money. The other part of answer to Jane's question, we don't accept money from any other organizations like AID or any others. We only get the stipend as offered by the social services group for taking care of families. We don't get money from any other groups. Good questions, yes.
How long do your foster families usually stay with you?
Well, we're just starting to keep up with that. So one of the things that we're starting to do as we grow is to be more attentive to our data. So we're just starting to collect that data. I don't really want to give you that answer because it's only been a year. It's kind of hard to know. It's more of an intuition than it is a real data. We think they stay longer, but we're starting to collect that data now. How long do our families stay in foster care? And so I couldn't answer, if you heard it, Jane, I couldn't give that strict answer with data. Another question? This is Q&A. Any questions fair? If you let me get to talking again, you'll be in trouble. Yes?
Where do you get your children? Since you have 17 or 18, you have families going on now that you got, do you get to select them out of the 10,000?
Where do the children come from that are placed with our families is Tom's question. And so the way, we don't have to look for the children. The way it works is that the social services, once a child comes into the auspice of foster care, then they call up agencies like us to say, do you have a family where this can fit? And so that's how our children come to our families. We averaged this past year from 80 to 120 calls a month from social services across the state asking, do you have families? And you all hear that crisis and statistic, right? Do you all have families where this situation would fit? And we're not able to meet those, right? So that answers your question as to how they come, and I'm going to use it to underline something else. We're also careful, and it's a mutual decision process. When families come to us and go through our training, if you commit to training, you're not committing to foster care. You're committing to work with us to learn, is this right for me, and what is right for me and my family? And we're also doing the same thing. We're listening to you and seeing if this is the right situation for a child. So it's a mutual decision process. And when our training is 6 sessions over about 3 months. If you go to any social services in the state, it's 2 days of training. Just to give you a sense of the difference in the quality. Because it's a process, and we want to begin that relationship with that process. And right now, I mean, you saw the number 9. I think we had about 3 or 4 to decide it's not the right time for them, and that's okay after they start the training, right? The other thing we do is there is a particular county, a particular location, a particular fit, I'll call it, from children to parents. And so we're careful about that, also trying to control the burnout situation. We do not do, and I'm going to have to stop now, we do not do what's called therapy foster care. You're especially trained for that. Those are with children you know have significant issues, and the state knows that. We don't do therapy, we do more of the regular. But you know a child that goes into foster care has faced trauma. Just having to leave their family and go, you know they've faced trauma. And we will support you in helping them with that trauma. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for everything you give. I'm going to stop now. If you have any other questions, please come see me.